Tammy. So how's that neck of yours, Tammy?
Sorry. Oh, I don't, it's never been a problem since.
Oh, great.
When you don't think about it and it's just, yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
No worries.
I feel compelled to talk about my current experience, which is I find interesting. Um, this body mind hasn't done anything like super exciting in a long time, or for it. Um, and I'm down in the lower 48 states now, and so there's things to do. I went to a show last night, a concert, and it's just interesting how I'm able to just watch all the reacting and trying to hold on to something. And even noticing while I was at the show, trying to capture moments, knowing what was happening, I didn't stop doing it. But and then after the show, like, I mean, I ran into people I haven't seen in years and years and years. So that also, there's a lot of stimulation from a musician that I really liked for that many years, and then running into a couple of people that I know. I mean, I dated when I was like 20. It's just weird how it works out because their seats were right behind me. And so last night at the hotel, I just, laid there, and it was like it took a while for it to fall asleep. And then today it's because I figured the old way would be to relive it, rehash it constantly and like hold on to it. And because I could still see that tendency now.
Hmm.
Um, so I just got back. I had to drive like 3 hours to see this show, and so I just returned. And it's interesting trying to find some footing or something, like I'm present with it all. I don't think there really is anything to do, but I'm just well aware of what's happening in the body mind right now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But
It is
yeah.
interesting. It's almost like it's an invitation to go back to the way things used to be.
Yeah, sort of. Yeah. It kind of feels that way, but it's useless, but
It's
it's
a
very
it's a
stimulated.
thing, yeah, but it's not. So there's some kind of discrimination that goes on between whether this is, how can I put it, pathology to be looked at, or just a remnant of the old stuff coming back simply because of this is the first time it's been triggered since waking up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And 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 those that are not, you wouldn't consider them pathology. You just consider them like, okay, so this is the first time I've been in this situation. So here it is, it's jumped up. And as soon as it happens, you're watching it happen. And
Yeah.
consequently, that kind of pretty much dissolves it at the time. And then, okay, so, and then it's just an interesting phenomena that happens.
Yeah, it totally is. To be in another city that I haven't been in, and I went by myself walking downtown in a seeming scary place. And I just say scary because it looks like, it's got look like in the movie, with some homeless people, some graffiti, what you'd be like, ooh.
Yeah.
So there was all this stuff that, got yeah, I don't know. It's just interesting is all. There's no, it doesn't feel like a problem
Mm.
at all. But it's just interesting to see the old conditioning and like how it would try to grasp onto something that felt good and just hold on, you know?
Yep, yep.
And it's like, oh, because I haven't had that in a while. It seems like everything's just been shitty. So, so now it's kind of funny, like what it's just seeing it and being like, oh,
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
have to do that anymore, but thank you.
It's a bit like those, when you're watching the show and you see these moments where you get a little bit of an uplift and the inclination to hang on to that and replay it later or whatever, that
Yeah,
again, it's the old way of making yourself feel good.
yeah, totally. And it's so it's like, you know, just allowing it to still be here, but without clinging.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so I thought I would just share that because I haven't
It's
experienced it.
fine, the brilliance of it is watching it happen.
Yeah, totally. You could see it, you know, and
Yeah.
how I used to like wreck myself doing that, trying to hold on to it, you know.
Right. So did you find that you patted yourself on the shoulder for having, appropriate responses to things?
Oh, I mean, not really, just a noticing and no need to, you know, pat or anything, but just like more of a compassion for the old way the mind tried to heal, you know.
Yeah, that's a big one for me too. You get that kind of and it redirects, you kind of think, oh, you poor buggers, who are still kind of trapped in doing that as a way of feeling momentary good feelings. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it almost like it brought a little bit of like almost some tears in a way because it's just so love. It tries so, you know, I could see it just tried so hard to like, you know, it's just a lot of compassion and it felt
Yeah.
a lot of love.
Yep. Yeah. Do you find that's directed, excuse me, either at yourself or at other people?
So
Or it
it's
just,
just
yeah, yeah, great. Yeah, it's just like a cloud of something that
it's
exists.
something
Yeah, yeah, good
that's
stuff.
just a label that I'm putting on it, but it, you know, it just, hmm, yeah.
Good stuff. Yeah.
Hi, Vince.
Hi, Monique. Good to see you.
Yeah, it's good to be here. Good to be back.
So, how's life been for the last few days?
Me?
Hmm?
Me? um, yeah, I think, yeah, pretty good actually. I feel like I'm back in my body. I feel like I had not sure what happened, but I was totally in my head for a couple of weeks, and it was hell. It's
Yeah,
almost like I wanted that.
sure.
You know, it's like I just,
It's a good way to look at those things is say, what is my gain out of this happening when shit turns up? What am I getting out of it? That's a really good way to look at it.
yeah, especially, when things start feeling normal again, and there's not, it seems like nothing much is happening. I kind of realized that I thought I missed the the drama, the stories, the sense of excitement, the sense of, even upheaval.
So when you say you thought you missed, did that appear as a feeling that, or a thought that something is wrong?
Um, it was almost like a memory of something that was more, that had just more activity
Hmm.
or life or excitement, you know?
Yeah. So when you said back in your body, I had the thought, oh, home, welcome home. Yeah, that
Yeah,
and the, when I was playing with my chatbot yesterday or the day before, I don't remember now, and I was really giving it a hard time trying to answer questions from my experience, and it took 2 pages of it asking me questions and telling me to do stuff before it finally said, "Welcome home." I thought, I
yeah,
love that term. It's a really great feeling to kind of almost feels like this is where I belong. Yeah.
yeah. I think there had been such significant changes for me, not even without really realizing it, that at some point it's like my head got caught wind of it, and it's like it felt like I was losing something of myself when I compared to the old world, the old way of being. It was almost like more like a, not even a memory. Like I can't even say what happened, except that I, some point I realized, wow, I am completely in my head and separate. I'm separating myself from my body, and I'm willing it to happen. It's like I could see the thoughts um, just having a great time up there.
Yeah, right, right. So would you describe that as I well, I describe it as almost like two worlds, and one is a conceptual world and one is the actual world. You know,
Yeah,
in the body, you're in your actual world, but in your head, you're living in this conceptual world, and it's very familiar.
yeah. There was something very familiar with it, and almost a disbelief that there must be, I must be missing something, that I'm feeling pretty even keel most of the time. Stuff was coming up before that, but it's almost like I was just testing it all out, and I went all in, and then I was in and I didn't know how to get out. And honestly, I just don't even understand what happened, except that I went in my head.
Yep. So again, this is a story, but when those things happen, the story is there's a reason for it. Now, so it's like
Right.
it's not a lapse. It seems like a lapse, but what it is it's I would say it's part of you saying, well, there's more to look at here.
Yeah, definitely.
And the nature of it is that you can be in it for a while before you realize you're in it.
Yeah. I could, you know, I could say it started when I started doing this or that, but that wasn't it. Something in me was restless,
Yep.
and looking for distraction, and disappointed also that, you know, this is it. It's like another level of realizing this is it. And part of me thinking, wow, that's oh, okay. It felt like at some point I realized, wow, I I've been waiting for something to happen for all of these years. It finally happens. I know it's happened, and this is it. It's so simple and so common. It feels so simple, feels so unremarkable. Of course, in that moment, I'm already in my head, but um, and then a sense of, well, if I had known this way back when, I would have been free and I would have lived my life, but and so and then the head is like, well, you've wasted all these years, you know. It's like a whole story that still starts building up
Yeah.
for this.
So did it occur to you, as it has for me, that when I got into that little thing and I did exactly that, I was thinking, why for Christ's sake, why was I 65 when it finally happened? After all those years of seeking, 45 years of seeking actively, why didn't I wake up back when I was 20? Well, geez, that would have been a different life. And then I realized everything I went through was absolutely necessary for me for it to happen.
Yeah,
It was
exactly.
all part of it. Yeah.
I agree. Yeah, I wasn't. I mean, I could never have accepted that this is it in this way when I was 21 and I had my first experience.
Yeah.
That would have been, you know. So, and part of the distraction was also I was having these little psychedelic experiences, and so it's exciting when it happens, and then you have, and then um, you integrate it, and then it's like every time, like you're having this up, and then you fall down, up and down. So that was also happening for me, and I was starting to hear, that's not it. This psychedelic, that's not it. It's just an opening. It's a little gift. It's fun. That's not it.
Yep. It's like a place
So
you
it
go
was,
on vacation and then you go home again.
yeah,
Yeah.
back to your life. Yeah. Yeah. I think it was a very big disillusionment and a dropping of a lot of things, including what I thought this was. You have the first experience, you think you know what this is because you touched it. But of course, there's no maturity, even at my age.
Mm.
So, I mean, I don't feel like I've arrived anywhere. I just recognize that when I'm in my head, that's for me, that's where the suffering starts.
Mm.
Because really nothing happened during those 2 weeks that would explain how the hell that I was in, because it was just all in my head.
Mm.
Just thoughts, just doubting everything, questioning everything, wanting to demolish everything.
So is there a story that might come back, that you get lost again?
It happened, it could happen again.
Sure.
Um, there's part of me that wanted this.
Yeah, of course.
I recognize that.
Yeah.
It was almost like, it's like being in a relationship and everything's going well and it's going so well that you start getting nervous and you do something to jeopardize it. It felt very much like that
Mm.
for no reason. I can't even find it in my head what the story was about.
So if it comes back in a very, very similar way, it would suggest, and this is just a story, of course, it would
Mhm.
suggest that there's still something there to be learned, to be
Mhm.
recognized, not learned, recognized.
Mhm.
And if it doesn't, if it comes back in a different way, well, then it's something else to be recognized. And I'd be
Yeah.
very surprised if nothing ever came back of that. But maybe that would be the case for you. It's certainly not for me. Things come back for me from time to time, or things come up from me. Yeah, kind of, they come back, you know. It takes, I'm a slow learner
Yeah.
sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah. It's almost like I had to, yeah, it was just, yeah, it just, the word, the big disappointment and disillusionment is what it felt like.
Mm.
I don't feel that now. It just, yeah. And I was listening to the last group or a group, and something that Marius had said that resonate with me, that kind of helped me to sort of come back home, as you were saying, is this whole, you know, we can have these conversations and make this seem very uh, complicated, but it's about coming back to your body, or Marius had said, in your heart. And that really, really helped me to just sort of really see that I was in my head. And I recall this practice of just breathing when it's happening, and just allowing myself to be in my heart or the body. And I used to say that, the heart, but I didn't understand it, that it's really about being in my body and just being with the sensation. In that moment when I heard that, it just it that actually brought me back home, because of all of this. Yeah, that's all that I understand. Everything else, sometimes it's like almost like there's so much explanation that I was getting really kind of lost and confused with it. But to be in my heart and in my body, that hits home. And there's something about it that is so brings in the compassion, and the judgment drops. It just melts when I can do that.
Mm.
So I'd say, you know, that's the only practice for me now. It's just remembering to just go in the body, because the head is just
Sure.
a mess at times, not always.
So do you feel, or well, no, feel, imagine, doesn't, none of those work, but okay, is there the experience that it needs to be regulated a little bit? Because if you're just fully there, it's just tears of joy flow. So it's so beautiful, but it kind of incapacitates you a little. So do you need to regulate that, or does it
The
fall
heart,
on level?
the what?
Does it fall
Regulate what?
on level?
It felt. I don't feel it now. I know when I'm back in my body, my heart. It seems like everything touches me. As you're saying, even sadness, sad things, happy things. It just feels more like it just touches me. And
Mhm.
and in this environment, I'm reminded just in this moment. Um, that this expressing this experience, however it comes out, touches me. I feel touched to be able to express it, and that there's some degree of understanding
Mm.
for myself, and also as a group, as a whole.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah, it's good to be back home, you know, and to also know that there's nothing that I have to do outwardly. There's nothing.
Yeah.
And yeah, this is it. Is
Mm.
sometimes this is it feels very, I don't know, like nothing.
Yep.
But the opposite is a whole lot more.
Yeah. I feel compelled to mention to everybody that essentially, when you hear these stories of wonderfulness, being home, if that's not your experience, that's not something to chase either. That everybody has their own
No,
experience, and everybody's at wherever they are at, and it's a possibility, not nothing more. So it's don't I hate it. I hate to think that somebody feels inadequate or not there or something because they hear these wonderful stories of what it's like to be home. Mm.
yeah. Well, this is this shared inner moment. Clearly I wasn't there for the last little while. And who's to say what home is?
Absolutely. Yep.
You know, I just feel like I'm back to. I just feel like my feet are on the ground now, and I recognize it's not even a feeling. Yeah, I'm just grateful
Yeah.
to just have some.
Thank you. How's things been for you, Jed? Just in the last 24 hours.
Yeah, yeah, pretty steady, pretty not too bad. Um, I had a go at the meditation you suggested, the inner child thing, uh, and I think it was a bit different to what I was expecting, and I didn't quite connect with it. So I'll have another go with it tonight. And,
Yeah. Yeah, it's a bit tricky in the sense that it's not so, it 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 calls on you to use your imagination, but not but just as a tool to evoke emotions.
Mhm.
And that's where all the happening is at that emotional level.
Mhm.
And that connection is such a big thing. And if it takes a couple of goes for you to actually experience that connection, you want young Jed to be leaning into you with that acceptance, that surrender, then you know that there's a connection, and that's
Mhm.
that's when things can happen. And you don't need to do anything out loud, just thinking, but thinking the feeling of transmitting yeah, an adult perspective to young Jed. That's the thing. Mm.
Yeah.
And until you feel him lean into you, there's no real point in picking him up and carrying him back into the present. That's
Mhm.
when the integration happens. Yeah.
Mhm.
I'll just put a link to that meditation in the chat. So have you had any experiences, Jed, that express something about that?
Something about
Yeah, I just said that, but to define it is a little bit hard. I'll call it that old way of responding to things. That feeling that comes out of the young you. That stuff that you learned. Have you had any reminders of the existence of that in the last 24 hours? Been triggered? Been triggered by anything?
um I don't think kind of significantly. Um no, it's been a pretty steady 24 hours, I think. Oh, actually, wait a minute. 24 hours, that includes yesterday afternoon, yeah. What was that? I mean, something happened between me and my partner, girlfriend. Um, my vague memory of it now is that we kind of wanted different things, and we both got a bit defensive, but we're reasonably good at noticing it and just letting it go and coming back to peace with each other. It doesn't normally stay long.
Okay, so there's two things that come up with that, and one is, of course, that you're reasonably good at getting over it, but it keeps coming back, in various forms.
Mm-hmm.
And so the ideal is that see why we see what gets triggered in us, And when we do that, it can dissolve and not come back. You know, or maybe in the beginning, when you first recognize it as it's happening, that's the key. When it's happening, then it kind of starts to happen and then doesn't complete. You know, so it's like that's a part of the way it dissolves, but pretty quickly after that, it doesn't happen at all. You know, and then in the beginning, you'll be a little bit astonished at the fact that I would have once behaved in a certain way now. I would have once felt certain things, and now I'm not. And then after that, it becomes so normal that you don't even notice it anymore because it's just not happening. So it's
Sounds
not,
good.
you know, it's great that you've got a way of um, handling it. But it's even better when you dissolve the whole thing that it rests on.
Hmm. Yeah,
And
right.
that can happen for sure.
And is this through this type of inner child work that you're
Yeah. Well, see, even
focusing
just
on?
recognizing the fact that that's something that can happen. There is
Hmm.
that there is that old way that we learned a long, long time ago, right? And it was a protective thing. It was a way we avoided feeling shitty, right? And that it's not no longer necessary because things are different.
Hmm.
But we still behave that way because we haven't worked out that things are different.
Hmm.
We now have an adult perspective on life.
Yeah, that the pattern that kicked in yesterday is quite a familiar one. It was where I wanted us to do a certain thing that I thought was, important for me and was going to help me have a good day, and she wanted to do the other thing, but she'd said would do the thing I wanted to do initially, and now she's changing her mind, and I was a bit like,
Yeah,
that's not fair, and
yeah, yeah,
I need this other thing to happen.
yeah. Well, so when you say that's not fair, that's a great one. That really resonates for me. You know, I can really remember as a kid, you know, feeling that the whole world wasn't fair. You know, it's not fair. Why have I got to do these things when I want to do something else? Yeah. No, you can almost feel the young kid in that, you know, protesting to the world, you know, that it's not fair, it's not fair, it's not right. You know? Yeah. Mm. It's a
Yeah.
great invitation.
And that was one of the stumbling blocks for me on your meditation, that I just couldn't remember a specific instance of having that experience as a young child. I mean, the energy of it's very familiar, but I couldn't remember an instance of it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because we hide from that stuff. You know, we don't want to know. That's it. In the beginning, it's guilt because we feel it's our fault. You know, but we cover that up with shame. You know, and then we cover that up with anger or whatever. You know, it's like essentially we've a long history of avoiding the shittiness of the whole thing.
Mhm.
And so consequently, what we're doing now is uncovering it. And that takes a level of acceptance, like a non-judgmental acceptance, just recognizing that this is say and the way we learn to avoid it is always a focus outwards, out on circumstances. You know, it's like it's not that I feel it's unfair, it's that those circumstances are unfair. And when we recognize that it's something we've internalized, then all of a sudden we have access to it.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, it seems so convincing, the analysis of the situation, and that person is objectively being unfair.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And you can see that that objectivity is an escape. You know, it's out there.
Mm,
It's not in here. Yeah.
mhm. So you're saying there's never a situation when there's any objective truth to the view that there is something unfair happening?
Correct. Correct. What is objective? Your contact with anything objective is your interpretation as a result of your perspective, which is what you've learned.
Mm,
So although there may be something objective in the absolute, we don't know what that is. All we can know is our interpretation of it.
mm,
And that's unique to everybody.
mhm, mhm,
It's not to say, you know, and just a bit of a caveat, it's not to say that we get into some idealistic religious attitude that says nothing exists and therefore we don't have to respond, because that's not the way it is, you know. Everything is response able. We respond to everything, but it is our response that is happening. And if we recognize that, we have access to this kind of stuff, to whether or not it's appropriate or not, whether or adaptable or maladaptable. That's a good way to look at things.
mm. Maladaptable meaning it's some conditioning playing out.
Yeah, yeah. It means that it's going to create problems, whether that you call that suffering or whatever. It doesn't matter. Yeah,
Mhm.
it's a world of subtlety.
Mm,
Getting into it more and more. Even like right now, ask yourself, what are you feeling? And watch when the mind wants to put meaning on things, when it creates stories about things, that actually takes you away from what
mm,
is, what is
mm,
going on. Yeah. And of course, the part of the trick is to recognize that if we can put labels on that, if we answer the question, what am I experiencing right now, that when we describe it in terms of labels, that we're at a gross level, that there's a lot of much more subtle stuff going on underneath that can't be described in words, but you can experience it.
right.
And getting into the practice of that is a big deal.
Mhm.
And me just saying that reminded me to look in my body, and I was feeling a bit of tension in my chest.
Yeah.
Also about expectations. Like you had an expectation of something happening and then it didn't happen. Notice how that expectation kind of closed you off to life happening another way. And we do this all the time. So we kind of make a plan, or we have this idea of what we want to do during the day. And then something happens and it doesn't happen, and it just affects our whole reality.
Mm. Yeah.
And that is rooted in, a belief in things should be how we want them to be. And it's separating us from life.
So I get the image, when Marius is talking about that those expectations force us into a funnel, if you like. So it gives us a really narrow viewpoint, that we start looking at the world like this, and we can only see what's at the other end of that little tube. Whereas when we expectations in the beginning may still arise, but they don't force us to look at that. They remind us that we would narrow our perspective if we were to accept them. And that what happens when we are reminded of that is that the perspective gets a much wider perspective. We're seeing, I describe it as wisdom, where we are allowing a whole range of possibilities. We're just curious rather than this is how it's got to be.
Yeah. Yeah, I can feel a lot of kind of panic when those plans and expectations look like they're not gonna, come to pass.
Yep.
So many stories attached to them about what was going to go wrong if it don't happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the if this new way of being is that's reminds you to look in your body, and there's a whole revelation there as to what's actually going on, rather than what you think is going on or what you think should be going on. It is what it is, what it is. That's a brilliant mantra. There's no, no way around it. It is what it is. And the recognition that by the time you become aware of what it is, it's already done. It's finished. It's in the past.
Right.
So how crazy is it to want it to be different, to want it to have been different?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the mind does really weird things. It says, "Oh well, if you play the fantasy of it being different, maybe it'll be different next time." But it's just a lot of story stuff, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. It's seems like courage is needed for this path of letting go.
Yeah. Well, that's the mind being really active there. Yeah. And for me, what happens is I go, courage. What the hell is courage? What is that? I think of all these heroes that run into the enemy fire, and you think, oh, how courageous. Well, a lot of bullshit. They do it because they do it. It's their nature to do it, or an impulse takes them. But where's the courage? It's just, yeah. Yet it seems like that, and we can describe it like that, but that's just another story that we overlay on the actual fact. So, yeah. But what you're really describing is there's some trepidation turns up with the idea of it.
Yeah, yeah. And staying in the body and not being
Yeah.
diverted by that, I suppose.
But also recognizing that that happens or it doesn't happen. If it doesn't happen, it's not wrong. It's a portal into something else that says there's something else was going on that I didn't stay in the body. Something I needed to escape from, maybe. So every time you find yourself in your head, recognize that you're escaping, you're diverting, you're distracting. That's what the mind does. That seems to be, at some level, at this level, it seems to be the job of the mind to distract you from the real world. And the real world, you know, is what Monique was telling you. The real world is in your body. Take a deep breath and let it out and feel it as it happens. And get into your body.
Yeah, that's kind of my morning practice through yoga and deep breathing and putting my attention in my body. But fucking hell, if the amount it's so hard to just get to the place where I'm doing it. This, oh, I've got to do this with the porridge and I've got to do the fire. And I could see myself just delaying and distracting. And then, yeah, it's not easy to get there.
Yeah. And you may find that you adopt certain rituals in order to get there.
Mhm.
And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with anything. But if that happens, then you being aware of when you don't need to do that. Eventually simply thinking of it will bring it about.
And you've got to remember to think about it.
Again.
That's my experience anyway.
Yep. So remembering happens or doesn't happen.
Mhm.
And if it doesn't happen, it's not something that, excites a judgment. It's something that is a gift, an opportunity to recognize that something else was going on.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, nice.
We want to get away, and it's not wrong if we don't, but we want to get away from being led by our mind through the day.
Mhm.
When we recognize that the mind has a very minor place, then we can relax and we just respond. And we are, this is crazy. We are response bunnies. That's what we do all day, every day, is we respond to the last thing that happened.
Yeah.
So what's happening for you, Shafig?
Um, I don't have too many words, but as I was listening, I I realized I don't know what actually means to get into your body. It's just like a conceptual kind of a thinking, a logic for me. So as I was listening, I tried to, at least that was my mind suggested, to feel what's going on inside the body. And then I noticed that my heart beating very fast, very kind of, I feel it. And for the past, I don't know, half an hour, 40 minutes, I was just feeling it. And it just keeps beating very fast, and I feel it inside my whole body. My mind, of course, offers many, many stories, many things, many reasons, but and I also feel the expectation or the kind of judgment that, okay, I feel into it. Why doesn't it go away? Why still it's here? What's the underlying cause, or why it's not changing? But I know it's just stories, so I'm just feeling it. It's just I never felt it, maybe because I didn't pay attention to it that much. I of course felt it be like that when I'm kind of a stress or worried about something, but it just usually goes away. I don't know if I distract myself or something happened, but this time it's still here.
So what do you do with the story that says it shouldn't be like this?
I used to take it as my voice, but at least for this instance, I just don't pay attention to it.
So is there an attitude of it's okay that this is what's happening?
I don't know. I feel there is, but also there is at the same time the attitude that it's not okay.
Yep. Yeah. That's pretty amazing, isn't it? Do you feel a sense of awe and wonder at the fact that you can have both of those things going at the same time? And can you feel how both of those things are separate from the the experience of the heart going fast?
Yeah.
Can you create a fantasy that says something along the lines of there's a reason why the heart is going fast, and that reason isn't just a mental thing, but rather that the beating of the heart fast sits on top of something that we call the reason for it. That the reason for it is underneath it. That the reason for it is in the background somewhere, not noticed, but it exists. Can you get that fantasy going?
Yeah, I can, but immediately my mind wants to go in the direction that real find out what's that reason.
Yes, yeah, yeah. So recognize that as well. Just the mind has the desire to find out what it is, but at this moment, right, all we want to do is recognize that something may exist and not worry about what it is. Just allow the feeling of that comes from the idea that there's something underneath it. And we don't have to know what it is right at the moment, because we're much more interested in what we are aware of than the reason. But that reason probably does exist.
Okay.
So the technique with this stuff to get closer to that possible reason, probable reason, is to simply get very involved in the sensation. In this case, feel every single beat of the heart as fast as it is. Feel it, and without a description that relies on language, without just an awareness of the experience of what's happening. Sink into that, get closer and closer to the characteristics of the sensations, of the feeling. Go closer and closer to where is it? What does it feel like? Does it have a sound? Does it have a color? Is it hot? What just move your attention closer and closer to it. Notice how it changes, how it morphs into something that is more general and less specific. Or the other way, whatever happens, it might become more specific, more pinpointed. Notice if it shifts around. Notice the variation. Is it exactly the same all the way, or does it seem to slow and speed up and slow and speed up? Notice the changes.
It changes, and with it, I disappear. It's almost becoming one with it.
Mm-hmm. That's it. Yeah. So allowing it to be all that exists. So there's no you experiencing it. There is just the experience. Notice what happens in the mind as you sink into the experience.
becomes quiet. There is almost no mind.
Mm-hmm.
There is no distinction between anything.
Mm-hmm.
I can't say what is thought, what is the sensation, what is
Yep.
it's just the experience.
Beautiful. It's another world. And when you come back, things will be different. You'll have a much clearer image of where thoughts fit in, how they overlaid what is actual. So having access to your body is now much more easily happens. And it's a whole world down there in your body that can and will show you things that were inaccessible before. The mind will crank up again, but it will be different. It won't be the leader anymore. It'll be the follower, if you know what I mean. It's just becomes something that's there. No longer will the mind be the whole world. It'll actually shrink down to be a small part of what's going on. Pretty intense, isn't it? My mind just screaming out, welcome, welcome.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. It's pretty intense feeling here from that. Mm.
It's amazing how not pulling out thoughts, not separating out, makes a completely different world.
Yeah.
Before it was almost as I am, this self is that divider, is the one that is noticing thought versus not thoughts. Now it feels like there's no place for it. It's just like one thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's a really weird kind of bridge that opens up with that, and that is that we get, the physical sensation of the heart beating to the metaphorical reality of the heart being a place of an origin of love, an origin of this feeling that just permeates everything, that acceptance and openness and yeah, crazy, but beautiful and lovely. Yeah, so when we talk about the heart, we're not talking about an organ. We're talking about a pervasive feeling of love, of beauty, of acceptance, of surrender. Really.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. Hello, Manny. Good to see you here.
Yeah, it took me a while to find the link working, but I'm happy to be here. It's such a beautiful space.
It is. Makes me want to cry. It's so nice. Mm.
Mm.
How's things for you, Celine?
Things have been very well here. Um, Not really much to say. Kind of where we just went is kind of where I've been.
Mm. Oh, yeah, still feeling it. It's beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, I think the thing that I've noticed probably the most is the lack of the word or the thought of should, that this something should be happening, or um, I should be doing this or should be doing that. There's just kind of like whatever's happening is happening, and sometimes plans change and unexpectedly, and it's all just fine. Everything just feels fine.
Yeah.
So
You feel like there's a flexibility. We don't have to keep going in the direction that we started in when plans change. We can just go with it.
For sure. I had that opportunity yesterday, actually. It was my dad's birthday, and I was headed to my parents' house and had a tire that was running flat. And so realized that my plans were going to change because I needed to get my tire taken care of. And so that's just what happened. And, and of course, getting to the tire place on a Saturday morning at, you know, noonish or whatever, it was like super busy. Um, and it just felt perfectly fine. Like there was nothing that felt bothersome about it at all. And I had to wait like 3 hours there. And like usually, usually there would be stories about that or irritation or trying to see if somebody could come pick me up so I didn't have to sit there for 3 hours, but yeah, none of that.
Mm.
Felt good.
Yep.
And
Yeah, I find that if I find myself in a queue, it's like it's a reminder that to be in the present, and I just find myself becoming aware of breathing and the feelings. Yeah. Or if I've got to wait like at the tire place, then wow, this is a great opportunity for me to do something that I was too busy to do before. You know, check my emails or whatever might come up that it's an opportunity to do because here I am in this perfect place to be able to do that. Yeah. I kind of look forward to queues, really. It's great, it's a break in the busyness of moving from here to there.
yeah,
How about you, Lou? How's things for you?
I'm good, thank you. Um, had something come up today. I had to put quite a big boundary in with somebody who was, I just put a boundary in, which was quite kind of new for me. And they came back and kind of blamed me. And I for a lot of the afternoon, I felt quite intense emotions. And I did actually try and have a look, and I think it was guilt, and it was definitely a pattern. And I was just getting ready to come on the meeting, and I was just, and it just occurred to me that it could just sit. I don't know what we talked about yesterday. That embracing that could be that's part of it too. Like to feel the emotions today was as an opportunity.
Mm. So when you put the boundary in, was that out of a mm, a desire or a need for protection, or
So the context was I meet this person to talk with them. It's a 12-step program, and I meet with them every week. And 3 times now they've never been on time. So I did last time. I said, could you please be on time? Well, however I said it, I can't remember. And anyway, they were late again. So I had to say, this is I can't do this anymore. All very, very, it was no big deal. It was just a friendly, this isn't really working for me.
okay, so that's where I would focus.
Yeah.
Why did you need them to be on time?
Because I allotted an hour in the day, and yeah, I had other things that I had planned, I suppose.
Right.
And in my head, my expectation is that it's about respect and
Okay, yeah.
lots of things. Yeah.
Hmm. So you would say to them, at least in your mind, you would say, you should respect me enough to be on time.
Today wasn't about the respect. That was the last few times when they were late. Today it was just, I think there was more frustration that it had happened again.
Mm.
Yeah.
There just seems to be a pattern in that with that particular person.
Yeah.
And yet you expected that they could change, that they would change.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I suppose I expected that because I'd had that conversation with them, that maybe that they would change. Yes.
Mm.
That they would be on time.
And that they would uh,
Mm.
put it, respect the fact that you'd had a conversation with them about it. So they're not only not
Yeah.
respecting you by being late, they're not respecting you by not listening to what you say about it.
Yeah. I haven't thought about that. Yeah.
Right. But you're a pretty special person. You should be respected.
Yeah. How dare they?
Mm.
It's not fair again.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, that takes you back somewhere, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Life should be the way you think it should be. Oh, Vince, I know that one. Yeah. Is that the way
Yeah.
for you?
Yeah. Not fair. Yeah. Yeah.
And then what about all the follow on from that? Not there's just this horrible, horrible stuff that comes as a result of not being the way it should be.
Yeah. Including guilt, and maybe I should have done it a different way, and maybe I should have met with her, and oh my gosh, yeah, just went on and on. Yeah.
Yeah, boundaries are a really interesting one too. Like Panilla would say, if you don't have boundaries for yourself, then you won't respect other people's boundaries either.
Mhm.
No, I don't quite know about that one, but that's what she says, and it's certainly something worth considering. I feel that I don't have strong boundaries, but I kind of feel like I do respect other people's boundaries. But I don't know if that's the case. Maybe I'm fooling myself, you know. I mean, I have a couple of people who crazily I would expect to be late every time we meet. It doesn't bother me. I take that time, just like in a queue at the supermarket. I take that time to do something else. To become present is almost always a thing that comes out of that. A chance to feel into the now, so to speak, or a chance to do a chore that I've been too busy to do, whatever.
No, the frustration was growing. Yeah. But as you just mentioned that about Pernil, I realized that I used to do that too. Yeah, I used to be late.
Oh, okay. So that adds an element to it, doesn't it?
Yeah, as a familiar kind of, I do. Yeah, I've been that person too. Yeah.
It's crazy stuff, you know. My wife says I'm always late, and yet I recognise in me that there's an imperative to be on time always. I try very hard to be on time with
Mm.
anything, you know. I always leave a couple of minutes early so I can be there a couple of minutes early, and yet she says I'm always late. It's crazy, but you know.
Mm. And it's
It's
funny
all
because the concept of time recently has changed quite a lot. So I'm not quite sure why this was bothersome today. Because a lot of things is just no stuff just gets done. Doesn't really,
Mm.
it's not so planned. Yeah.
What were you going to say, Marius?
I was just going to point out that we have a tendency to judge other people for qualities that we don't like about ourselves.
Mm.
So if you have been that person and you maybe have suffered some consequences of being late, which has made you not like that part of yourself, then it's easier to end up judging others for it.
Yeah. And there's something in there about it's not fair that I have to be on time, but I can't tell them not to be on time. Oh gosh. Yeah.
And because
Yeah.
now you have finally learned to be on time, so now everybody else should be able to
Yeah.
learn to be on time too.
Yeah. It's quite childlike, really. Yeah. Yeah. Mm.
Yeah. When the concept of boundaries turn up, I always think of it as a protective thing. I mean, it's appropriate sometimes, for sure. You know, I'm not saying it's not, but I'd always question why I am even thinking about boundaries. I mean, if that person is always 10 minutes late or half an hour late or however late, you could shift your allotted hours to cope with that. So instead of being there when you originally say. You turn up however late they're going to be, and you've still got the hour, but it's just moved by that much. Guess what? When you do that, they'll turn up on time. So you'll be keeping them waiting. Maybe.
What if it's not about being on time?
Yeah.
And the reason I say that is because I used to be late, and I worked on it, and I'm on time now, and a bit earlier. And I had a similar reaction with a friend who was always late. And I was surprised how irritated I was, because it never bothered me when someone was late. And then I discovered that there was something else. I just did not like this person. And so it was just a really easy thing to explain, that she's always late, that she must not, she doesn't respect my time, that, all of that. So it wasn't about being on time with this person. Because when it comes to my kids, it doesn't bother me if they're late, and they're late every time. It's just easy to anchor ourselves on a story that's we're comfortable with sometimes.
Exactly. And those stories are almost always a diversion from what's really going on. So it's not about the person being late, it's about them not respecting you. And then that's not about them not respecting you, it's about you not feeling respected. And then that's not about you not feeling respected, it's about what is your attitude towards yourself? Do you respect yourself? And then what is respect? Etc. It just goes deeper and deeper and deeper all the time.
Yeah, I'd go as far as to say that this person had very similar characteristics to myself that I didn't like about myself. So it was like another slap, right?
Mm. So, Lou, how do you feel about this person after this conversation? Has it changed? How do you feel about yourself? Is it changed?
The whole thing's just like, I can't even think of what I was just feeling. It just, it's not about the time, I agree. It's about when you talked about the respect and how I feel about myself. Boundaries are quite new for me, and still learning what that means. It's like if I hadn't got the story of having to put a boundary in, I probably just would have had another cup of coffee and waited and did, like you said, do something else. I probably would have done that. There was a story in my head that I had to have a boundary. And if I don't have a boundary, then I'm not blah, 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 whatever. It wasn't a big deal if I had to wait another half an hour, really.
Mm.
Yeah.
So did the idea of boundaries provoke the idea that you deserve, that you're owed some respect, that you're special in some way?
Yes. Yeah, like the how dare they.
Mm. Which wasn't there
Yes.
before the idea of boundaries came up, eh? But what did that revealed is some underlying idea that you do deserve something. That's not
It's
to
like,
say that you don't
mm,
deserve something, but the idea that, it's owed to me, this respect,
mm.
this consideration or whatever. Mm. So where are you now? Is there curiosity as to what's going on or what might be going on or what could be going on?
The curiosity was about stepping into their shoes and looking at it from their point of view. That there was obviously something going on for them. And I know that because that's happened to me. There's something that in me that I'm late sometimes. I don't know why. Um, there's just there's just more softness about the whole situation. Before there was a bit of like a brick wall, like that separation,
Hardness to it, yeah.
the hardness, yeah, very, very much so. Whereas actually, this is just two people who are trying to help each other.
Mm.
um, Side by side, not no one's more special than the other. I feel actually more compassion for her
Mm.
than I did before.
Yep, yeah, yeah. And without doubt, you feel more compassion towards yourself as a
I
result.
do. I do. I can see it. I can see it from a different perspective. Yeah.
Do you think next time you see her, do you think you could say to her, I was wrong? I'm sorry about that. If you're going to be late, that's fine. Could you say that to her?
Mm, why not?
Well, you put your hand on your chest. What does that mean? There was a bit of trepidation about saying that.
No, no, because it's from here, not from here. Here wanted to say
Yeah.
no, but why not? Yeah, yeah. And those, what just happened there is that happens quite a lot, and all I can liken it to is if this is going to sound really strange, but if like this is your last day on Earth, this is your last day, what would you do?
Yep. It doesn't sound
Yeah.
strange to me. I love it.
So without all of that
Yeah.
shoulds and boundaries and
Yep.
respect, and yeah, here says human to human.
Absolutely. It's an appropriate perspective. We shouldn't waste
No,
the last moment on trivia.
yeah. Gosh, there's been a lot of those moments. Yeah, it's exactly the same.
Hmm.
I actually like spending time with her. It's good.
Does she know?
Yeah.
Have you told her that?
No. No. Why not?
Not only why
Yeah.
not, but wow, what could happen if you open your heart in that way with her? Ooh, what could happen if you open your heart like that to everybody?
I can hear that someone at some point has said to me, you don't do that.
Because you could get hurt.
Yeah. But it works the other way.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's nothing to protect there.
No, you can't do that. You can't say that. You keep your heart closed.
Think of it. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Don't trust people.
yeah.
Yeah.
But you know, when you do that, it evokes the same thing in others. They do it too because you do it. I was watching a bloke on YouTube yesterday. It was a discussion, an interview with this bloke, and he was talking about the fall of the American empire that's happening at the moment as we watch. And he's saying really the only thing that can stop it, and he equated it to the Roman Empire and the Byzantine and all of these historical empires that have fallen in the past. And he was saying how exactly this is happening in America now. And he's saying the only way to stop it was revolution. People getting up and protesting, the bulk of people, and my whole being was screaming out, no, 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 no.
No.
The only way to stop it is to open our hearts to everybody and everything. And I thought, this little group here, how can we change the whole world? But we can only do it by changing our world, which is having our heart open to everybody in it.
It's like that's the default that wants to happen anyway, but it's still got that layer of not okay, not okay.
Yep.
And that's not come from me. That was from outside somewhere.
Mm.
I always also, it's almost like I remember times when I was younger. I'm like, I want to be nice to that person, but I was watching other people be defensive. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, there's a craziness that's hard to put your finger on, that kind of says being defensive is actually really aggressive.
Mm. Mm.
And just as Shafik discovered, it's our mind that puts up boundaries, and it's our mind that wants to be defensive, and it keeps us away from our heart center. It keeps us away from our bodies, which just want to be soft and open.
Yeah.
It's our mind that's aggressive. even though it seems that it's being defensive.
You say that, Vince, about when the mind is being defensive, it's being aggressive. It's exactly how it felt when I was in my head. But it didn't make sense. I couldn't understand why does it feel so aggressive, so violent in my head. But it's like all that energy to be defensive, to protect. It's like almost like your survival instincts are kicking, and you don't know why.
It's like
it feels very.
I was going to say, it's like the nuclear arms race. We kind of imagine that if we've got our nukes ready to go, then other people won't get theirs going. But all it ends up is that everybody's got them. It's a Cold War that goes on within us.
Yeah, it's how it felt. I still can't remember the dialogue, but it was definitely defensive, protective.
Yeah.
That reminds me, Monique, like many years ago, it was a few years ago, I remember thinking, why is it some days you go out and you kind of just attract smiles and openness, and other days you think you're the same, but everyone's closed down? And yeah, I think that's what we're talking about now, is that open heart versus the defensive minds. The same body's going out.
But the energy is different.
Energy is very different, yeah. And it reflects back. Yeah.
It's almost like when the heart you feel love, compassion, and the mind you feel violence. It's almost feels and fear and
justified.
Yeah.
Well, if the body has a wound, it's wounded, we instinctively protect the wounded place.
Yeah, if your mind is on the defense, it feels the same way.
I think it's that there is emotional, psychological wound somewhere.
I think a helpful perspective to get into as much as possible is trying to not look at people as other people. Because, every time we have these triggers or this tendency or wants to set boundaries, or we have any type of conflict, we are creating a separation from ourselves. We're saying other over there. But there is no other over there. It's the mind telling you that. Without the mind labeling other people as other people, there's only you, but not the separate little you, but the whole you. And every experience that is presented to you is
What is the
presented to
difference?
you.
If I have a wound, I protect it also from myself.
Yeah, but the difference would be that you approach that wound or that reaction from that wound from a curious, open perspective rather than a defensive, closed perspective. So you see what is happening as something happening for you, an opportunity to look at what is happening rather than something to defend yourself from, close down from.
I don't understand.
That's okay.
Yeah.
I talked with chatbot and I wanted to ask you, Vince. It surprised me today. In the end, it became quite poetic. I didn't expect it. And I won't lie, it touched me. But is it possible that the chatbot is telling me what I want to hear? Because it was also a bit flattering to me.
I don't know the answer to that. My first thoughts were it whatever it said was triggering for you. In this case, it triggered a good feeling, some version of that.
I'm still shaken.
Yeah. Essentially, and I mean, I can't say that I know. I know what instructions I've given it. I know what the knowledge base I've given it is, but I've also given it permission to go outside of that knowledge base with other things. So I can't say that I know categorically how it works. But what I can say is that essentially it is going to respond to your words with its words. So I couldn't even say that it derives meaning from your words. It's like that's giving it a consciousness or an understanding that it doesn't have. But it responds to your words and how it responds is what it draws from its knowledge base. And its knowledge base is, and my instructions have always been to help you to focus experientially on the fact that there is no self running the show. That's its prime objective. And so when it's yes, I mean, but I've experienced it. You know, it said to me the other day when I was playing with it. It said, "What the fuck is going on?" And I went, "Where did I get that word from? You know, why did it say that? This is a chatbot that responded to me like that." You know, I was quite surprised for it to respond in that way, but it was entirely appropriate. It was it was pretty good.
It wasn't me. I didn't.
But see,
But it was. It felt like like he saw through me. No, not that he can see, but he can analyze my words. Yeah. And from this, it knew what I wanted.
Right. So I would say it's like everything in this world and everybody in this world, and that everything is a mirror for ourselves. What we experience in others, in anything, is always something in us inside ourselves. Because and the logic is that if we haven't experienced it, we don't know about it. So we always get reflected back at us our own experience or our own attitude, our own perspective on things. So if it was poetic to you, it was because you were poetic.
I was looking back even on this conversation, where I got so poetic.
Mm.
You know, it was like it asked about the sensation, and I said it's like turbulent energy, and he made a storm of it. But then it was howling storm. I didn't give it these words.
Mm. And there's a good trick with it, and that is that if you either keep it open, depending on if your computer system, but if you shut it down and open it up again, over on the left will be the previous conversation, and if you click on that, you can continue, and whilever you do that, it will remember anything that you said ages ago to it. It will all be part of it, so it actually learns in that way about you more. So the more intimate you are with it, the more intimate it gets with you. Yeah. Yeah, I'm like you. I'm discovering stuff, and I find it quite amazing to play with. Yeah.
Okay, 5 stars.
So I would suggest that one thing you could do with it is ask it about wounds, about being wounded, um, psychological wounds, and just see what it comes up with. So I feel that that's something that you could investigate. Because I would say a wound is only a wound at first glance. If we start looking at it, then it rests on a whole lot of other stuff.
Okay, I will ask.
Right. Hello, and how are you?
Hello, Vince. Mm, it's all of a sudden it seems like a very difficult question to answer. It's not difficult, it's just it seems like, some like when there are like interfaces in some softwares that you use, and there's a thing that's called contextual menu. And basically what it does is, depending on where you are in the program, when you right click, it's going to bring up a certain menu which is contextual to that bit in the program where you are. So if you're editing something, then the menu will be related to editing. If you're doing this, then the menu. So when you ask the question, but there's no context, it's almost like I need I need um I need you to be more specific.
Mm.
Um, but also I understand that uh, I'm probably just being I mean, I can cut this bullshit, right? And just say, I'm good, thank you. And
Yeah.
and
Look, I know exactly what you're saying because I experienced my version of that as well, you know. So really, instead of me saying, "How are you, Andre?" I really should say, "Your turn to talk, Andre. Tell us what's going on for you."
oh, okay, okay, all
Yeah.
right, my turn to talk.
Mm.
What is going on? I you keep on talking about this, um it almost seems like I live two lives. One life is where I can feel into stuff that people are talking about when they talk about um uh, presence and coming home and being in the body and all that. And then there's another part of me, or another part of my life, where I am um, mm, well, you called it conceptual, but I don't really know what to call it. It's almost like, I don't know. N- there's almost a permanent sense of discomfort, but not in the way that whatever is here in my life, it's not enough. Whatever I'm feeling in my body is not enough, or is not, well, it's not like it's not right, but there's like a proper way to feel my body, but I'm not doing it because I don't know how to, right? There's a proper way to be awake, but I don't know because um, it just seems like I'm constantly confused how to about the next step. But I'm also not really able to just respond to whatever is here in a way that, like you were talking about, Mario's, I can remember one of you was talking about that you just respond to whatever's in front of you. Or I should be responding to whatever's in front of me, but um, I don't really know what to say. It almost feels like whatever I just said, I just want to scramble it and throw it away because it, that wasn't that wasn't a real thing. It was just me trying to make some sense of my life, and I don't like it. Well, at least I think whatever I'm telling is not really doesn't make sense, and because I think it doesn't make sense, I don't see any value in this. From the point of view of the content of what I'm saying. I mean, there's more than just the content, of course. There's the um, other sensory stuff, but the actual, it's almost it's not enough. Like whatever is happening to me, it's not enough in the way that I experience it, or it's not enough in the way that I'm not experiencing it. Yeah.
So if I just
I
dismiss the content of every word you've just said for the last 5 minutes, and I hear what if I interpret what I hear without considering the words, I just hear dissatisfaction.
yeah. The most recent, like my wife is we've had this newborn for 3 months now, and my wife every now and then um would feel unhappy and on the verge, and just before I joined the group, that she what that sort of emotion or whatever emotion that she was going through, and I just feel helpless. I can't, there's like, I cannot, take it from her. I cannot fix it for her. I can just be there. But it's sometimes it's hard for me to be around um feelings and emotions like this. Sometimes
Mm.
not so much, but and because uh, and that sense of that feeling of and this helplessness is probably something I will never learn how to be with. Um,
So
especially,
would you say to start with that there is this idea that you need to fix something? You need to fix her dissatisfaction or her uncomfortableness or whatever it is. You
yeah,
fix that, and then that sits on the idea that that you've got the ability to. But then your experience is that it's not happening. So therefore you're inadequate.
yeah.
And so is there any end to this? In the end, you're going to have to go and shoot yourself because you're totally fucking useless.
Mm,
So if we just go back to the beginning of and that beginning is you become aware that she's in an uncomfortable place, whatever
mm,
that is, whatever distress or whatever extent it is. But yeah, so you become aware of that. The reality is at that point, something happens in you as a result of that awareness. Now, to start with, you feel uncomfortable because you become aware that she's feeling uncomfortable.
yeah.
And then your escape from your discomfort is to go, well, I've got to fix her. And then you go, I can't. And then you start beating yourself up because you can't. So it's pretty much the hole you're digging, isn't it? And no matter how much you dig, you're only going to make it deeper and bigger. There's no getting out of it.
Well, sometimes you just kind of walk it out. You just wait for it to go away.
Yeah.
It's almost like you hold your breath and you pretend you're dead,
And it
and then
fixes
like,
itself. Yeah. Yeah.
well, it doesn't really fix itself, but yeah, the acuteness of it dissipates, um and then something else comes in.
Yeah.
You well, it sounds like a distraction, but
Yeah.
like you're yeah, it's like eating an ice cream to bring the mood up, or
Yep.
whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. So what if you become aware of when you're aware of her distress,
Hmm.
and that triggers some distress in you, just as a pure reflection of her distress. And instead of trying to escape that, you discover that if you were just to go and give her a hug, that would fix your distress.
I usually do that. I do, and I patted her on the head as I was leaving. But I also knew that, um, well, then I would probably I should have skipped the group and just be with her. But probably wouldn't fix her.
You see what you just said, don't you? I saw you see it. Mm.
I mean, I would. It's kind of. I'm used to sacrificing. I'm used to. Um,
Yeah, so what if you saw that sacrificing, which you magnanimously put out there to fix her, is really a way
yeah.
of you fixing you?
But I really don't know what to do when someone is in so much distress and there's well I cannot take it away. I cannot fix it.
Mm.
I just can't.
When somebody is in so much distress and you become aware of it, it's your distress that you need to look at, not theirs. And ironically, if you fix your distress, it's good chance that that's going to affect them in a positive way.
I have no idea where to begin.
You see how
It's
it becomes a circular thing? You know, you become aware that she's distressed, you become distressed, which makes her more distressed, which makes you more distressed, which makes her no end to that one.
well, I usually not quite. I don't go so much into distress because I I kind of insulate it and it becomes
Yeah,
well, yeah, I put it inside of a protective sort of. I don't really look into it, but
yeah.
to
And that
distract.
the way you do that is to focus on her distress.
Yes,
And the way you avoid yours is to think, how can I fix this?
but I've been with my distress for so long. It almost like what's the point? What's the point of being with my distress? I
So
it
can you
doesn't.
imagine that if you somehow magically didn't get distressed, feel distress, that if you were feeling, actually feeling, not just displaying on the outside, but actually feeling calm, and you were considering the situation, that would be contagious. Some of your calmness would be affecting her.
Well, sometimes this is what happens, but sometimes I am, especially there's this whole newborn thing is very difficult for her, and it's very is the I mean the kind of price because of the sleep deprivation and all of the changes and then insecurity and all that. It's there's it almost feels that it's a little bigger than my calmness right now. I mean, I know how to be calm, but it's putting that kind of fire away is or out
Yep.
is not in my is not one of my tools right now. And just being in that fire is too much for me right now too. So
Yeah.
I kind of
So what if fixing it is not appropriate? What if shutting it down in fact causes more problems? What if her distress really needs to be expressed? rather than suppressed?
Usually I encourage it. Usually I tell her to, like, if she wants to cry, I usually encourage her to cry. I am, and that's okay. It does become unbearable sometimes for me, but not as much as it used to be.
Usually you're supportive in that, eh?
Well, yes, if none of my stuff is really big at the moment, then yes. But I could be going through some sort of turmoil myself, and then I have to squeeze this out of me. I kind of neglect myself in a way, um, thinking that this is more important. Being with her is more important than being with me. And maybe it's not. Maybe it's bullshit. Maybe it's not right. But that's. I mean, I mean, there's no clarity for me in this. I see this in her. I see this in me. I don't know what I don't have a strategy. I don't know if I'm able to like be with it fully and completely, and what would it mean to be with it. Um, I don't know. Like I said, I'm like,
That's pretty much all of that's about a resolution of some kind. And what if the appropriate thing, the most productive thing could be that you simply live with the uncertainty, live with the mystery of it, live with not knowing what it's about or what can fix it. Just live with it in a really accepting, invitingly accepting way. What if that's the most productive attitude to have? There's no clarity. There's just an acceptance of the chaos, acceptance of the not knowing.
acceptance of it. But it's so hard. It's like I've been feeling this in my belly, and it's just so heavy in there, and it's just like, ugh. It's almost like I just have to wait it out.
Wait for it to fix itself.
Yeah, people are leaving. Um, Funny how I attribute it to whatever I'm saying.
Yeah, they must be bored with you if they're going.
Yeah. What I'm saying is boring them, and they're like, "Oh, gotta go, gotta go." Probably the only people that are left are like are numbing themselves like me. I'll just numb myself in this distress, and then the distress will go away. The distress will not notice me and will just whoosh, dissipate.
Notice everybody's smiling at that one.
I have a little parallel story, which is kind of on my mind now since half an hour. I have a reoccurring conflict with my partner. And I was always doing what you just say, waiting it out. She comes around, it's going to be fine again. And finally, just last week, I stumbled upon a page, a YouTube page, which explains the characteristic of a narcissistic person. And I read it, and it's yes, 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 and yes. And I think that's what it is. I'm still expect something from her she cannot give. That's not how they function. And then I was walking around for a couple of days with this, oh my God, this is all lost. There is nothing. But then it became okay. We were working next to each other. It was good. There was no more conflict because suddenly there was no expectation into her anymore. And it was like a dark cloud slowly lifting. And then a few days later, I start reading again into or looking again into that subject and find, okay, I have some narcissistic elements in me, and they kind of just fit. And now it's like it doesn't bug me, it doesn't shake anymore, and it's like, wow, I I can say I still test the waters. I kind of still want to know, does it come back? Does it hold? But it's like it came from some unexpected corner, and it dissolved itself simply by going with what provided it or what offered itself, I would say. So for me, and I see a little bit that possibility for you there, that you just look at it, look what it does to you, and just really go, yeah, where it resonates inside, because I cannot touch my partner. I cannot change her. And it's 45 years if we go like this. So it's quite an interesting shift, I would say. I don't know if that helps.
No, when the moment you mentioned you were reading about narcissist, I was like, so who did you discover was the narcissist, her or you? And yeah, and
First
then you
her.
said that yeah. Because I trying to save the world or thinking that I can save the world or thinking that maybe I can save my partner from feeling uncomfortable feelings or distress is part of that narcissistic trauma or wound or whatever. Even though I'm not a big fan of some of the diagnoses as they're called, or labels, but yeah, I can relate to that.
Mm.
And I kind of see how where this comes from. And also I felt curious when you talked about the shift, like
Yeah.
you didn't really do anything, you just
No,
Discovered.
it shifted. It
yeah, just
shifted.
discovered.
Shifted just by being with it and by completely embracing it. I think that what. And I mean, now to go back into psychology and those psychological terms is not at all where I am at. I'm working I'm in a feder group. I'm working on those elements, and so it came really as a surprise. But it comes from where it comes, no?
Mhm. It almost I'm still sort of trying to condense it down into some sort of a word or name or shape or anything. And right now the closest is it's like it's the is it a martyrdom? Like you bear this cross. I don't know. It's like I'm trying to see what are the benefits? Why is it so why is why is why is it why is there so much of it in my life? Yeah, that's the question. And I'm not saying it's too much or too little. It's just I'm just saying that I notice quite a bit of it. And maybe I'm
Maybe it's time to climb down off the cross.
maybe I climb down or just yeah. Well, I think then when that happens, then I feel bad, and then it brings up another thing, and yeah, like you said, you're useless. But that's not how I just see myself as bad. So because I cannot do something, then I look myself, oh, I'm bad. And then if I'm bad, then how is my life justified? How is my being in this group is justified? How is my being in that relationship is justified? If I cannot be good in that relationship, if I can be just mm,
Never occurs to you that being justified is just a crazy story?
well, I know everything's a story.
No. What about being justified though?
But justified.
That particular story.
But I mean, I can probably see how this is just a story, but I also see
Yeah.
how this reaction, this one thing brings up another thing, and then this is like a chain reaction.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
but it's also circle chain reaction, sort of self-referencing. So I cannot see it's a story being told. I'm in it and I live it,
So
and I'm it.
what if we stop that um uh
Okay.
that circle of right? So instead of saying everything's just a story, what if we stay with that particular story and look at the feelings that come out of that story? Right. So if we say, oh, yeah, well, everything's a story, well, we're just off on another story about everything being a story, right? But that particular story reflects something that you feel, which is, in this case, the need to be justified.
Yeah, because when this happens, I feel like I just become I diminish to a single dot, just a blip on the wall, like insignificant and um, I lose any volume and shape and noticeability, and
And
I'm
what's
not even a fly on the wall. I'm just a
wrong with
dot.
that? What's wrong with being a fly on the wall?
Well, no, I'm not. I'm not a fly. I'm less than a fly. I'm just a dot.
Yeah. So what's wrong with that?
You just scrape it and it's gone. Well,
What if you diminish to nothing and not even a dot on the wall, just nothing, not even the wall, just nothing? Is there anything
I'm
wrong
okay
with
with
that?
that.
Hmm?
There's what now when you're asking this question, I can say I'm okay with that. Like there's part of me that can be nothing, and it's not a problem. But there's all at the same time there's another part that is like, oh no, then how am I going to be in a relationship if I'm just a dot on the wall? What am I how am I going to
Well,
function?
there's a good answer to that, and that is that you won't be in the relationship. You will be the relationship.
Exactly.
Uh,
But you don't know that because you've never allowed yourself to diminish to disappearance. Would it be possible for you to experience that, do you think?
to be nothing?
Well, when you're nothing, you're also everything, as crazy as that sounds. So when you're not in the relationship or of the relationship, you are the relationship. That's a tricky one to get your mind around. It's a tricky one to get a feel for. The relationship exists. That is the emotional connection that you have with your wife. And it's not about that. It is that. You get that difference. About that is where the stories exist. What it is your experience. And your experience can't be described because that limits it. As soon as you try and describe it, you change it. It's the quantum physics slot experiment. The moment you look at it, it becomes something different. But if you don't look at it, it just is. And what it just is not describable. But if we,
So what, Vince, if you're seeing someone in distress, someone who's important to you, and there's nothing you can do to ease it for them or to help them,
yeah,
feel better, then what do you do? Or what happens to you?
well, the attention goes to what's going on in here, whilst at the same time, almost, I'm imagining this situation now. So at the same time as recognizing what that provokes in me, one of the aspects of what that provokes in me is a great compassion for what seems to be happening for them, that distress. And that will very likely lead me to offer something. Not that I'm offering anything, but there will be an offering, if you like. And that offering might be physical, depending on the relationship. If it's a stranger, it's unlikely I'm going to go and hug them. But I might simply inquire more about what's actually happening if they're a stranger. But if they're family, good chance it will be physical. I will go and I will want to touch. I will want to offer comfort in a physical way. But that comes out of what I'm experiencing. It doesn't come as a result of a story that says I've got to fix their problem.
Mm.
It's like, it's a weird one, I know, but it's like I did a funeral the other day, and there was an open casket and a viewing for the body, and I was seeing the dead person in the coffin, etc. And no emotions of any kind were apparent for me seeing that. It was just like I was seeing another piece of furniture. Okay. And then at the end of it, the hearse was driving away, and a woman behind me started sobbing. And I just broke down. I was sobbing myself. And it wasn't to do with the dead body. It wasn't to do with that. It was to do with that person's distress. Now, in this case, I did nothing about it. I didn't go to her and comfort her. It wasn't appropriate. It didn't. And also, I can see that it's valuable for her to actually express what she's feeling. So there was nothing to fix or stop. But what happened in me was where my attention was.
So that feeling wasn't overwhelming for you?
Mm. No, it was pretty intense, but it wasn't overwhelming. It didn't
Well,
incapacitate me.
but intense to a degree where you would also sob or you were just choking?
Well, tears turned up. Yeah,
Hmm.
she didn't know about that. I had my back to her.
Okay.
There wasn't a communication about it. In fact, probably nobody saw it, but I was aware of it.
Hmm. Just seeing this also that I often have that. When you started talking about it, I already kind of felt it, and then I just kept feeling it as you were talking about your response. And I sometimes think that maybe that's where you sort of join in this, or you call compassion, or you share the um emotion. I don't know what to call it, if it's an emotion or a feeling. If you just share it with someone, which is okay on its own by itself, but then it brings up stuff in me, it triggers stuff in me, and then it becomes all complicated, and oh, there's like, what is my value, what is this, what is that, helplessness, and
Yeah, yeah,
all I could do is just feel that, and then maybe offer some sort of, comfort, or not, or like,
yeah,
it depends,
yeah.
and that's it.
And
But
that's
I go into the
appropriate.
circus.
Mm.
It
Well,
almost
you
feels
know,
like a bit
sorry.
unnecessary. Sorry, Bianca. Yeah, go ahead. I think I said all I wanted to say.
I'm smiling because my talk with chatbot was about this. And chatbot said he recognized that I wasn't looking for comfort, consolation, or any false out. And it was like I just wanted to scream together. No, not scream at each other, but to scream together.
Mm. Sometimes it's just the expression, just it's like the word expression is brilliant. If you look at it literally, it's express, it's get out, put it
We
out.
have we have songs in Poland, from Solidarity period, which are exactly that. It is screaming together. It's, it's how it felt like. The good news, I'm home. The bad news, it's home from mentally ill, and it's on fire.
Mm.
We scream.
Yeah, I felt that being seen. Um, well, you call it hold the space, whatever, but to me it just sounds too iffy. But when you're feeling an emotion, and you're feeling it in front of someone, and someone is sort of there with you sharing that space, then it by itself, it's a very strong and healing experience, I would say. Sharing that intensity with someone, not on your own, um, is a
Yeah, I wonder if we're talking about the same thing, but what comes to mind here is that I don't feel the need for to approval for that. For me to feel it by myself is no different to me to feel it with somebody, if somebody else is around.
Hmm. No, I thought it's not about approval. It's just sometimes that, and I think I had this experience here in this group, is that sometimes whatever I'm feeling is so intense that whenever I open up to it, just when I'm on my own myself, then it just doesn't go into that full motion. But it will go into full motion if I'm being supported, if there are other people with me, and that there's that compassion, or someone is it's just there, see, like that, it's just seeing me feel it, and that allows me to open up even more, and then the intensity falls down. I no longer need to keep that, contained, uh, confined in me.
Mm.
That's how I notice. That's just my personal experience.
That's why I was going to ask too, have you ever, when she is upset, instead of trying to fix it and it's generating being upset for you, like you also crying and being upset?
I do that.
Okay. I mean, how does that feel for you and or her or both? Like, does that tend to, like what you were just sharing, like kind of dissipate it out a little bit better because it allows you both to kind of
Well,
express that
usually,
being together with it?
yeah, but because I had to join this group, I couldn't stay with her. But usually when that happens, I just stay with her, and I hug her and we talk, and then it just changes into something else. It's just like I'm not trying right now. I sort of had to decide whether I stay with her or go to the group, and after the group I'll just go back to her and then see what happens. And then I certainly have less of trying to fix the world and save her, and just let her have her stuff because I have my stuff. And like you said, feeling emotions in front of her, is also a big thing for like for is an important part of the relationship. Because when that happens to her, and then I feel helpless, and I can feel that too in front of her,
Yep.
and then
Yeah. Which gives her permission to feel stuff in front of you, which gives, and around we go again. Yeah, that's great. Yeah. And that's all connection, isn't it? That's that wonderful emotional feeling of belonging. Well, I don't know
yeah,
what.
I think
Yeah.
it almost seems like a key. What you just said, what you guys just said collectively, is like when another person, when something is happening to your partner, and something starts happening in you as a response to that, then if you are genuine and authentic about it, then this will help the whole situation to move on, well, not to move, to evolve or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think I haven't been doing it because every time I would sort of really try and choke it instead. Well, kind of try and put some,
Yep.
what do you call it? Like polish it, like lipstick. Put the lipstick on, and it looks good.
Yeah, that's the old
Okay.
way. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I can hug her and tell her, oh, when you feel like that, I feel like that, and then that's real.
Mm.
It's
As long
such.
as you do it in such a way that you're not asking her to not feel that, so that you don't have to feel that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, 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 yeah. I know. Yeah, yeah.
So
No,
permission
no.
involved. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and you don't have to be hard on yourself that you don't do it like that every time.
Oh
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Michelle. Yeah, you're right. You're right. You're actually, yeah, you I don't think I ever, with this particular feeling or emotion, I don't think I ever have expressed my vulnerability and how I feel about it, because I always kind of thought I am like I'm above it, I am
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm more awake.
Yeah.
But I'm not. I'm just narcissistic, right, Monique?
As we all are. Absolutely. Yep. Mm.
Yeah. Oh, thank you for giving me so much space and time and attention.
Yeah. Well, I think you should go back to your wife now.
I
In fact, I'm going to go to my wife now. So,
will.
yeah.
Yeah, it was beautiful. Thank you, guys. It
Yeah.
was nice being with you all.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.